Round 4 of the 2021 Challenge Series takes us to the Nurburgring for the second running of the German Grand Prix. Maybe the circuit is really iconic, but the drivers of the Challenge F1 Series races here for the first time. In qualifying, the story was the same as Nurburgring took pole position ahead of Maurizio Tessa and Manuel Vasil. Gillett, now racing for Infinity Racing, starts from 4th ahead of Bart and Lostia. Looking at the pretty disappointing qualifying session in 7th, ahead of Tim Schmidt and Stefano Colita, while Alessandro Gatti makes it into the top 10 for the first time. At the start, everybody got away cleanly, and no changes were made in the top 5. Although Zavos decided to dive down the inside of the other cars coming into turn 1, but it ended in the worst possible way as he torpedoed Lostia out of the running. Luckily for Lostia, the car wasn't severely damaged, so he was able to continue.
What a fucking idiot! What a fucking idiot!
But that wasn't the only incident that happened on lap 1. Mollara dived down the inside of Guerrero, and they collided, sending both cars spinning out. Almost everyone avoided the carnage, except for Carproni, who managed to collect 1. And again, no damage was done, and they are allowed to continue. While the other Delta Sim racing car, Tim Schmidt, was picking his way up through the field. And coming into a hairpin, he overtook Lukic for 6th. After the start, Nurburgring continued to lead the race, ahead of the 2 Mandre cars and Bott, who managed to climb up to 4th. Looks like Gillett isn't going to lose that 6th place without a fight. He dived back down the inside of Tim Schmidt and got back ahead of him. For a second, Tim Schmidt thought about making a move coming into the chicane, but he backed out of it. At the end of lap 1, the positions remained the same, with Nurburgring leading from the 2 Mandre cars, Bott, Lukic, and Gillett.
Give it everything you got, come on!
But coming into turn 3, Bott decided to make a move on Manuel Vasil, but there were no room left, so he had to back out of it. Then he decided to go for a switchback move, and thanks to the engine advantage, he breezes past the Mandre car. Coming out of the Schumacher S, Vasil tried to gain the position back. Bott slides wide and rides over the curb, as Vasil goes past him, and now Lukic is trying to attack him coming into the chicane. Meanwhile, further down the field, Tartari makes live work on Gatti to get up to 10th. And behind them, the other mouse-powered car of Bence Valdinger has engaged combat with Colita coming into the hairpin, and coming out of it, gets ahead for now.
Multi-12, multi-12.
Which switch is that, mate? Which switch? Where's the multi?
Let Sebastian go, please, Mark.
It's an inner team battle between the Infinity Engineering cars, as Lukic gets past Gillett, easy as you like. Over the course of the weekend, the soft tires were worn out really quickly, so it was no surprise that Juan Guerrero was the first one who came into the pits for a tire change. Although coming out of the pits, disaster struck. Guerrero's engine gave out, so he had to pull over and retire from the race. Rookie driver Valentin Talbot is trying to make an impression on his first race for Alpine. But as he got stuck behind Mollara, Abiti is trying to go around the outside of him coming into the chicane. They bang wheels, but Abiti gets ahead of Talbot. Further ahead, Gatti is trying to make a move on Colita. And into turn 1, he dives down the inside and gets the place. Coming in the next lap, Colita tried to give a taste of Gatti's own medicine.
It looks like we might have an issue. Hang in there, we're attempting to manage it.
But disaster struck! Colita's engine blown up in spectacular style as he spun into the gravel trap. He's out of the race! Further down the field, Corsos tried to make a move on Mollara, while Castelli is trying to do the same with Abiti. But he misjudges his braking point and hits Abiti, and this little incident gifted the free position to Zervos.
Oh my! I'm blind!
A few laps later, Mollara was already overtaken by Talbot and Corso. Now Abiti is trying to make a move on him. but Molara turns on a BT and a BT spun around. Luckily the car wasn't damaged, but that gifted the place to Castelli.
What a stupid action!
Ramachi comes in to make his first stop, while the two Mandrake cars stay out, as well as Bart. So it was no surprise that Ramachi rejoined behind them. But now, he has much fresher tires than the others around him, so he easily breezes past Vasile. And on the very next lap, he makes light work on Bart as well. At the end of the very same lap, Tessa comes into the pits, which leaves Ramachi in the lead once again. Molara and Abiti engaged in combat once again. But this time, Molara runs wide and Abiti takes the place, easy as you like. Coming out of turn 6, Bart clips the grass and he slides into the gravel trap, having a little bit of a brush with the barriers. From the leaders, Vasile was the one who stayed out the longest, until this point as he comes into the pits. After the pit stops, disaster struck for Tartari.
Okay, looks like a mechanical failure. We're gonna have to ask you to find a safe spot to retire. Sorry about that.
What the f*** are we doing here? I'm going home, you.
His engine gave out halfway through the race. Ramachi came in for his second stop and rejoined in the lead. Looks like the Bravo drivers had finally engaged combat in the Challenge Series as well. Bence tries to dive down the inside of Talbot, but he keeps the place. And coming into the final corner, he does it again, but this time, Bence Valdinger gets ahead of Talbot for now. Although Talbot gets a much better exit, and he tries to dive back down the inside. There's a little bit of a nudge, but Talbot gets back ahead. Bence Valdinger is really pushing hard to find a way around the Alpine. But that wasn't the only battle that was going on the field. The battle between the Infinity Engineering cars rages on once again. But Judd lost the car for a second, and battled out looking to get ahead of him. After the second pit stop phase, Corso is the one who's trying to make a move on Valdinger this time. They are side by side coming into turn 2, but Bence just managed to stay ahead. Corso tried it again in turn 3, but it doesn't work out. The other mouse-powered car of Bart is now trying to make light work on Gillette. He easily gets ahead, but he forced Gillette to cut the chicane.
You got cross over my line there. Push me wide.
It was a fairly uneventful race for Zervos, so when he slids wide, he engages combat with Lustia. Finally some action for him as well. Lustia gets ahead of him on the straight, but coming into the chicane, Zervos dives back down the inside, but he doesn't make the corner and had to cut the chicane.
He needs to give me back the position. Cut the chicane.
And coming into the final corner, Lustia almost hits the back of him.
It's a joke. A joke.
Yeah, we know. We can't do anything apart from give it everything maximum pace.
Coming into turn 1, Lustia does a switchback move on Zervos, but they collide! Again, neither of the cars wasn't damaged severely, so the battle can continue.
What a joke! What a joke!
Coming into the hairpin, Lustia tries to dive back down the inside, but Zervos shuts the door. Looks like Lustia is really struggling to get past Zervos.
Now I arrive to him. What more I have to do? We understand. We know you're quicker. Overtake him.
This time he goes round the outside of Zervos, but Zervos pushes him wide.
What an idiot.
Up in the lead, Ramachi once again comes around the final corner to win the 2021 German Grand Prix. Looks like the defending champion is on his merry way to get his third title in a row. Lustia has finally got Zervos, but he slips wide coming into the chicane and has to let Zervos back through.
Go for it, go for it, go for it!
Looks like they're coming out of the final corner. It's a drag race to the line, but Zervos just holds on to it. Now that was a brilliant battle in the last few laps, as Tessa comes around the final corner to get his second podium of the season. Behind him, Wesley comes home in third, collecting his first podium of the series and the season. So it's a double podium for Mandray Racing. Lukic finishes 4th ahead of Bott, who managed to get his best position of the season in 5th. Gillett comes home in 6th, his first ever race for Infinity Engineering, ahead of Tim Schmidt in 7th, who had a pretty decent race in his home Grand Prix. Gatti finishes 8th, his best position of the season, ahead of BP, Corso, and Bence Valdinger, who just missed out on a point because he needed to save fuel for the last few laps because of a leak on his tank. Not too much change at the top as Amachi continued to lead ahead of Lukic as Tessa jumped up to 3rd, passing Guerrero and Stefano Colita, who falls down into 6th as Dragon already fell down to 7th. Gillett stays in 8th ahead of Bott and Manuel Wasil, who jumps up to 10th in his first outing for Mandray Racing. Constructors-wise, Racing Scuderas continues to lead ahead of Mandray Racing, Infinity Engineering, and Delta Racing, while Miles Problem Mechanics jumps up to 5th, overtaking back TCF1 who fell down to 6th. Alpine has jumped down to 7th, ahead of Geek Racing Team, ATC Racing, Edu Sim Club, and Racing Meritus, who is still lost in the Constructors' Championship. Before the summer break, there is one more race left to run, and it's the British Grand Prix in 2 weeks' time.